So this video is over the 1-1 notes, and it is slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. Our objectives are that by the end of the lesson, you should be able to say, I can identify lines by their slopes, and I can write equations for parallel and perpendicular lines. So the very first piece of vocabulary here is slope, and slope measures the steepness and direction from right to left of a line. If you recall, this is our equation for slope, right? So slope is the change in y over the change in x, thus rise, which is vertical change, over run, which is horizontal change. So let's talk about parallel lines and perpendicular lines. Parallel lines do not intersect. Oh, let me go back up to slope for 1 second. So notice here we have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that's because we would have had 2 points, x1 comma y1 and x2 y2, and that between those 2 points we can then determine what kind of line is formed and the slope of that line. Okay, so we have 2 types of lines: parallel lines, they do not intersect, they never intersect, and perpendicular lines, which intersect to form right angles. So go ahead and write these 2 down. Do not intersect for parallel lines and intersect to form right angles for perpendicular lines. Okay, so once you're done with that, we're going to go back and review a couple things. So the slope-intercept equation of a line is y is equal to mx plus b, where m is the slope of the line and b is the y-intercept of the line, right? So what we're going to do before we do anything else is we're going to review a little bit of this with some equations. See that this is our m, and this is our b, right? In the equation y equals mx plus b. So m is our slope, so m is equal to 1/2, and b is equal to 5, okay? Which is our y-intercept, okay? So now we have a problem with b because it's not in that same form, right? So what we need to do is we need to move the 3x to the other side. We're going to do that by subtracting it. So that's going to leave us with 4y equals negative 3x plus 12. Then we're going to divide both sides by 4. Okay, so what's that going to give us now for m and b? Negative 3/4, so m is going to be equal to negative 3/4, and our b is 12 divided by 4, which is 3, right? So that's our y-intercept, so b is going to be 3. Okay, now similarly with c, this time we have a constant on the other side of the equal sign, so I'm going to go ahead and move that constant to the left. So I'm going to subtract the 6 here, so we're going to be left with 4x minus 6 equals negative 3y. So we're going to divide everything by a negative 3 here because we want to get that y by itself. Okay, so now again, notice we have our m right there, right? So m is going to be equal to negative 4/3, and our b is going to be negative 6 divided by negative 3. And so a negative divided by a negative is a positive, right? So 6 divided by 3 is going to be positive 2. So that's our y-intercept, okay? Got 3 problems to do. Go ahead and do this and come back to me when you're done. It's pretty easy again because this is our m and this is our b. So m, which is our slope, is equal to 5, and b is equal to negative 2. So the middle one again, we're going to have to move the 2x to the other side. So I'm going to leave it 10y is equal to, and I'm going to subtract that 2x from both sides. So that's going to give me negative 2x plus 6. Then I'm going to have to divide everything by 10 here, right? 10, 10, and 10. Now recall that when we do this, we have to reduce things, okay? So this is going to end up being 2 goes into 10 5 times, so this is negative 1/5 x, and 6 and 10 are both divisible by 2, aren't they? So this is going to end up being what? 3/5. Okay, so that means my m is negative 1/5 and my b is equal to 3/5. Okay, now what I'm going to do with c is like we did with the previous problem. I'm going to move the 6. So I'm going to move the 6 to the other side. So that's going to give me 3x minus 6 equals 2y. Going to have to divide everything by 2. If my pen would work. Everything by 2, right? Remember that? So that gives me 3/2 x minus 6 divided by 2 is 3, and then there's my y. So here again we got our coefficient that's attached to the x, so that's going to be our m. M is equal to 3/2, and b is going to be the constant, so b is equal to -3, okay? All right, so the next thing here says slopes of special lines. So we got a couple blanks to fill in here in our notes. So go ahead and fill in this blank. Parallel lines have the same slope for each line. That's key, okay? Go ahead and fill that in. And then also fill in what it says for perpendicular slopes. So slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. What does that mean? That means we're going to change the sign of it, okay, to make it a perpendicular slope. But then we're also going to flip it, okay? Flip the top and bottom, okay? So that's what reciprocal means. We flip the top and bottom, okay? So you might want to write that down, change the sign. So if it was positive, it becomes negative. If it was negative, it becomes positive. And then you're going to flip the top and bottom, okay, from the position they currently are in. Together. So our original slope was a over b, so our parallel slope is the same, okay? However, our perpendicular slope, it was positive, so we're going to make it negative, and then we're going to make the top the bottom and the bottom the top, okay? So it's going to be b over a, okay? Now, we're going to do number 2 as well together. So here again, parallel slope is going to be the same. Okay, this was a negative, so now it's going to be a positive, and isn't 2 the same as 2 over 1? So this is going to end up being positive 1/2, okay? Go ahead and do letter C by yourselves. I think you guys can do that. Right, so this is going to be 2/3, and this is going to be -3 over 2. Now, this one's a little tricky because a zero slope on a line, right? Okay, so the slope here is 0, and that means we divided into 0, so our y's were the same, okay? Now, that means that, so this was a horizontal line. You might want to write that, okay? Just for to remember. Which means this line over here is going to have to be a vertical line, right? Well, vertical lines, you cannot divide by 0, okay? So that means this is going to be an undefined slope, okay? So anytime you have a vertical line, hopefully you remember this from last year, it has an undefined slope, whereas horizontal lines have a 0 slope, okay? So now, just a reminder, slope is equal to m, which is rise over run. It's the change in y over the change in x. So that's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so we're going to work a couple of these together as well. So determine if the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or perpendicular given the 2 points of each line. So let's go ahead and find line 1. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to label this x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so remember, we're doing y2 minus y1. I'm going to write it here just so you guys, and this is not on the formula sheet, y'all, so you might want to write it down a couple times to get it memorized, okay? So what we're going to do is 0 minus a minus 4 over minus 3 minus a minus 4, okay? So minus a minus means what? Plus. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. Let me do it in red. Change that minus a minus to a plus. Change this minus a minus to a plus. So that's going to be 0 plus 4, which is 4, right? And then that's -3 plus 4, which would be 1. So that means my slope of line 1 is 4. Thing with line 2. Okay, label it x1, y1, x2, y2. Remember, we're using that formula again. So this time we're doing 2 minus a minus 2 over 1 minus 0. Okay, remember again, if we have a minus, that's a plus. So that's going to give us 4 over 1, which again is 4. So if the slopes are the same, which they are, see right here, that means these lines are parallel. Okay? We're going to do the same thing with B, and you guys can pause the video, do it here yourself if you want to, try, or just hold on and we'll do it together. So we're going to do again line 1, label x1, y1, x2, y2. So this is going to be equal to 3 minus a minus 3 over 1 minus a minus 2. Once again, I'm going to change those signs to plus right here because we're subtracting a negative. That means we're really adding. So this is going to be 6 over 3, which is equal to 2. All right, now let's do line 2. Again, x1, y1, x2, y2. So it's going to be -1 minus 1 over 4 minus 0. So it's going to be negative 2 over 4, which reduces to be negative 1/2. Okay, so we can see immediately that they change signs, right? So the original one was 2, and the slope of line 2 is negative, right? So positive, negative. But then do you also realize that that is the reciprocal? Because the reciprocal of 2 is 1/2, and that's because 2 is the same as 2 over 1. So that means these lines are what? Perpendicular. Okay? So now I'd like you guys to do the you do and come back to me when you're done. So I'm going to go ahead and label these again, x1, y1, x2, y2. So for line 1, we're going to have 8 minus 2 over 3 minus 5. So it's going to be 6 over negative 2, which is negative 3, right? Remember, a positive divided by a negative is negative. Then we're going to do our line 2. So this is going to be x1, y1, x2, y2. So line 2 is going to be 1 minus 4 over 8 minus 7. So that's going to be a negative 3 over 1, which is also negative 3. So if these are equal, what can we say? These are parallel, right? Okay. Did you do the other one? If not, pause the video, do it, and come back to me. So here we go again, x1, y1, x2, y2. Oh, and by the way, the other one asks us determine if the lines are parallel. Obviously, the answer was yes, they are parallel, right? Okay. And then we said they were parallel. So I'm going to go here again. I'm going to go 5 minus, this is line 1. 5 minus 2 over minus 1 minus 3. So that's going to be what? 3 over negative 4. So that's negative 3/4. Now let's do the other one. x1, y1, x2, y2. So for line 2, we've got 3 minus 0 over 6 minus 2. This time we have 3 over 4. Now, notice they aren't the same sign. One's positive, one's negative. The line 1 is negative and the line 2 is positive, but they are not reciprocals of each other. So it asks us, are the lines parallel to each other? The answer is no. And why? Because they're not negative reciprocals. They're not parallel, first of all, because they're not the same. We could say different signs. Okay? Got it? All right, so this next one says calculate the slope between 2 points that lie on the same line. So how do we do that? Now this is, I'm going to show you guys another way to do this. So we've done the slope formula, right? We could use that here, and you could use it to check, and I'm going to show you actually both ways, but I want you to see something else. So we can do rise, remember, over run, right? So if we have a graph like this, we can just count it. So we're going to go from this point up here down to that point down there. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3 down. So that's going to be negative 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So negative 3/5. Okay. Now if we use the slope formula and we label these like we've been doing, so we would call this one x1, y1, right? And x2, y2. If we do that, we got negative 1 minus 2 over 3 minus a minus 2. Right? Okay, so remember when we do it minus and minus, we get a plus here. Okay, so that's going to give us negative 3 over our 5. So no matter which way we do it, whether we do it rise over run or we do it with the slope formula, we get the same answer. Okay. Next one says this you do. It says identify if the two lines graphed are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Okay, so what you want to do is find the slopes and determine whether they're equal, which would be parallel, or whether they are perpendicular, which would mean one's positive, one's negative, and then they are reciprocals of each other. Or if none of those apply, then it's neither. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Come back to me when you're done. So this is what I'm going to do to find the slope of AB. The slope. Okay, so I'm going to count 1, 2 up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 3 up, 5 over, that's 3/5. Okay, now we're going to find the slope of CD. Okay, so we're looking for its slope. So we're going to count 1, 2 up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over. So the slopes of these are both 3/5. And it kind of looked like the lines were parallel, right? but don't assume what you don't know for sure, okay? You got to be able to prove it, okay? Now, we could have also used those points to do it, but obviously, when we have a drawing like this, it's easier to use rise over run. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with the next one, and I'm going to start with BD. Okay, so I'm going to count 1, 2 down and 1 over. So that would be -2 over 1. That would be -2, right? Now let's look at the slope of CA. CA, again, I'm going to go from C, 1 up and 1, 2 over. So 1 up and 2 over is 1/2. Notice the relationship here. They are negative reciprocals of each other, right? Now also, want to remind you guys that when lines fall from left to right, that's always going to be a negative slope. So that's why BD is negative, because it's falling from left to right. And CA is positive because it's rising from left to right, okay? So example 5 says, what is the slope of line AB? What is the line parallel to line AB through point C? Now, this is a little bit different, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is find the slope of AB. Okay, we're going to find the slope of AB. So we're going to count 1, 2 up, rise over run, 1, 2, 3, 4 over. Okay, also remember, you always want to simplify this. This is the slope of 1/2. Then it's telling us what is the line that's parallel to line AB through point C. So we got to find out what point C is here. It's our x value is -2 and our y value is 1. Okay, so now what we're going to use is we're going to do that equation y equals mx plus b. Notice we have an x here, we have a y here, and we have our m right there. So the only thing we are missing is b. So we're going to solve for b, and then we're going to plug the slope in b back into the equation to write the new equation. So we're going to put our 1 here, that's our y, see it right there? That equals our m right there, 1/2 times our -2, there's our x value right there, see it? And plus our b. Okay, so that's 1 equals, what's half of -2? -1 plus b. Now, how do we get rid of a -1? We add a 1 to both sides, right? So that means our b is equal to 2. So what we do now is we plug back in the values of our slope and our b to write our equation. So y is equal to 1/2 x plus 2. But a little different because it says what is the slope of AB, what is the slope of a line perpendicular to AB, and then what is the line perpendicular to AB through point C. So once again, we're going to find the slope of AB. What is the slope of AB? Okay, so we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down, rise over 1, 2, 3 over. So now notice that's -2. And again, that line does fall from left to right, doesn't it? Okay, then let's look what our C is here. So C this time is -2, 2. Okay, so we're going to plug that in for our x and our y. Again, in our equation, y equals mx plus b. But before we do that, we need to find out what the perpendicular slope is, because we don't want, we see it says we got to find the perpendicular slope right there. So what we want is to take this slope and find its perpendicular. So the perpendicular m is going to be positive 1/2. Because remember, -2 is -2 over 1. So now the slope we're going to use the x and y here, x and y, but we're going to use the slope of 1/2 because we're looking for the perpendicular slope. So again, we're going to use the equation y equals mx plus b. Okay, so we're going to go 2 equals 1/2. I don't know what happened there. 1/2 times our x, -2, plus our b. Okay. So that's going to be 2 is equal, what's the half of -2? That's -1 plus b. And we're going to have to add 1 to both sides this time, right? Plus 1 plus 1. So that makes our b equal to 3. So now our new equation is going to be y equals, again, remember, we're going to take our slope right here. No, not that one. Sorry, my bad. We're not going to take that slope. We're going to take this slope right here, right? Because that's our perpendicular slope, and our b, and plug them into the equation. So y is equal to 1/2 x plus 3. Okay? So let's see if you guys can do this last one. In this one, you're going to do both a parallel and a perpendicular line through point C, but you got to find the slope of AB first. Go ahead and do that. Come back to me when you're done. Okay, so let's find the slope of AB. And we're going to count. It's falling from left to right, so we know it's going to be negative. 1, 2, 3, 4. So M is equal to negative 4 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Negative 4 of 6. Remember, we're always going to reduce these. So this is going to be negative 2/3. Okay, now what is that point C up here? This point C is negative 1 comma 5. Okay, so we're going to put this in our equation. Remember, this is our X and this is our Y. So 5 is equal to negative 2/3 times negative 1 plus B. Okay, so that's going to be 5. A negative times a negative is a positive, so that's 2/3 plus B. Now we're going to subtract 2/3 from both sides, aren't we? So, and you can do this in your calculator. 5 minus, you can do it just like this. 5 minus 2, in parentheses, 2 divided by 3. Okay, and that's going to be your B. Okay, so B is equal to, if you do this in your calculator, you get 4.33. But that's also equal to, if you push Math 1.1, if you have a TI-84, or in the TI-30, there's this mode called classic mode and math print mode. Okay, so those are different, and we'll talk about those in class. Okay, but this could also be 13/3, or what's the other way to say this, right, is 4 1/3. Okay, so all three of those could be your B. So I'm going to write the answer now. It's saying, what is the line parallel? So Y is equal to, here's our slope, negative 2/3 X, and any one of those. But I'm going to go ahead and do this one right here, plus 13/3. Okay, got it? All right, so now let's go on to the next one. Should have completed it all. So now our original slope was 2/3, so what's our perpendicular slope? It's going to be, perpendicular slope is going to be positive 3/2, right? So we're going to do the same thing we just did. The difference this time is, and let me extend this page down here so we have a little more room to work. The difference this time is that we are going to, we're going to use the same point for X and Y. So our X, so our point was negative 1, 5, right? So that's our X and that's our Y. This slope is the slope we're going to use now. So we're going to use our Y equals mx plus b again. We're going to put our 5 there is equal to 3/2 times the negative 1 plus b. Okay, so that means this is going to be negative 3/2, right? Plus our b is equal to 5. Now this time we're going to add that 3/2 to both sides, aren't we? Okay, so 3/2 is the same as 1.5, isn't it? Okay, so once again, easy way you can do this is 5 plus, and you can just do 3 divided by 2, guys. You can. Okay, so that's 6.5. So 6.5 is equal to B, which we also know is 6.5. You can again do Math 1.1, and that's 13/2. Okay, as well, or what? 6.5. Okay, doesn't matter. All of these are your B. Okay, so this time when we write our answer, Y is equal to, there's our slope, 3/2 X. And I'm just going to grab this one this time, plus 6.5. And again, the answer could be represented any one of those three ways, okay?